Hey folks, this is Lucid. Welcome to a guide on luck and misfortune. And this is a pretty interesting topic, I think. It's a topic that many people in the community have different opinions about. People have argued vigorously in various chat forums about whether you should take luck, whether you should take misfortune, whether it's cheap, whether it's expensive, all of these things. And part of the reason why such a wide array of opinions exists on the topic of luck and misfortune is because it's very difficult to gauge how important or how effective or how painful it is to take luck or misfortune. And the reason for that is the mechanisms through which the net effect are calculated are very, very opaque. They're hard to see. So first, we need to talk about how the luck scale works. Basically, when you take luck on your pretender, you're going to get a 5 additional 5% chance for an event to happen, and then there's a 10% chance that it will be more lucky, or a good event rather than a bad event. So this is going to both decrease the amount of bad events you get and increase the amount of good events. If you take it all the way at luck 3, you get 15% more events in total, and then 30% of them are going to be better. And I'm not exactly sure how this 30% works. I mean, when you get into what's the final good to bad ratio, I'm assuming, and I don't actually know this, but I'm assuming you're going to have 30% more good events than you have bad events. But, like if it's 50-50 at the beginning, I don't know what the final ratio is. Anyway, like it could take your... Anyway, we're not going to get into it, but it would be interesting to find out. The other thing worth noting is that turmoil is going to increase your event frequency. It's not going to impact whether the events are good or bad. It's going to increase the event frequency by 2% per scale. Likewise, order will decrease it. So, anyway, there you go. That's basically how the scale works. Now, so to summarize, you're going to get more events from taking luck. You're going to have the events be better. Like more of them are likely to be good events. And then the final effect is that the pool which events draw from is going to be a better pool if you have good luck events. And that is because each scale will have certain events tied to it. Luck has a lot of events tied to it. And a lot of scales will have good and bad events tied to it. Luck will basically always have good events tied to it. So when you take luck 3, you're going to get a lot of good events. And if you take misfortune 3, the bad events you can get are worse, right? And so with luck, the good events you get are better. That's the other thing. So there's kind of 3 stacking effects. And maybe now you're starting to see how it's very difficult to gauge how each of these stack with each other and all of this. Like, what is the net effect? Is it net effect worth it, net effect not? That's what we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about that in the final part of this, which is where I go through a guide that Sir Toma did, where he basically did a pretty sophisticated analysis of all of the luck events in the game. He and I talked about it a bit, but he did just a phenomenal job unlocking all of kind of the intricacies and trying to come up with a summary of is luck worth it or not. And we'll get into that. The TLDR, if you guys don't want to get all the way to the end, is that Misfortune 2 can be worth it if you need to stack scales. Like if you really need the scales. But Luck 3 is really good. And a lot of people already knew this just from playing the game a lot. But we'll get into it because it's actually really interesting. And it's not that straightforward. Not only in how you do the analysis, but the conclusions have a lot of ifs and buts in them. And we'll get to all those. Okay, so now we have unluck. Now we have I'm going to talk you through how to do, how to manage kind of searching for events and whatnot in the mod inspector. So one thing you can see, like this is an event here. This is the event that actually wrecked me in my Bandar log game. I had this kill an army of like 100 and something dudes. This killed a legit army. It summoned a ton of demon knights and yeah, rip. And these are definitely the sort of things which can kill an army. Demon Knights are nasty, especially like 20 of them. So, this, I just want to show you how the, if you click on events, you'll have to click load events. There's a little checkbox you click, and then you probably want to click advanced and all these things. But what you'll see is that events have these tags on them, and like not some of the events don't have required anything, but this one in particular can't happen before turn 25, which is nice because it can be game ruining. This one requires you to have Misfortune 2. Misfortune 3 will also trigger it. And this one also requires you to have Growth 2. And Growth 3 will also allow this to trigger. So, anyway, that's kind of how to read it. And so what's interesting is, in here in the mod inspector, we could, for example, like I've filtered right now, here are all the events which require you to have Misfortune. And they're a lousy set of events. But you could just as well type in here, require growth, and these will be all the events that are keyed to some growth. Now, some of them will have like, I don't know if we can see it, some will have growth -1. Yeah, like growth -1. And what growth -1 here means is you need to have death. So, anyway. That is basically how, so when you have an event, basically what's going to happen, there's going to be a chance to roll, do you have an event or not? If there is an event, it will be rolled good or bad, right, based on the luck or misfortune you have in that province. This is my understanding anyway. And then there's going to be a greater likelihood that you get a common event versus an uncommon event. And you can see some of these, like here, this is common and bad. And this one is uncommon and good. So what's going to happen, it's going to figure out whether you've got a common or an uncommon and a good and a bad. And then based on the scales that are in your province, it will basically generate for that province a pool of events. These are all the events that could happen in that province based on the scales you have, and then based on whether you rolled a good or a bad event, and then a common or an uncommon. And how it actually does uncommon, common or uncommon, I'm not exactly sure of the details, but this is a functional understanding of what happens. And then, anyway, you basically get a random roll of one of the events in that pool. So anyway, that's how to look at the mod inspector. Some events are chained, and if you read the text, you can usually find, it'll usually have some indication that it's a chain event, like it's linked to other ones. But if you come in here in the mod inspector, you can just type in some of the text from the event, and that will pull it up in here. And then if you see triggering events or triggered events, like here, you can see what the chain is. But this isn't a deep dive on all the events. It's really a deep dive on luck. But the important thing, and the thing I'll close with on the mod inspector part, is that there's a bunch of different effects that can come from an event. You can get income, like you can get gold, you can get permanent income, you can get attacked by indies, you can get free items, you can get your scales modified, you can get unrest, you can get free units, you can get gems. So there's a lot of things that come with events. So again, you can see the mire thickens, right? Hard to assess, is it good or bad? Because it's not even just summing up gold. It's summing up gold minus the unrest you get, anyway. And then there's also the trade-off, like, okay, if you're getting luck, you might be looking at, okay, well, here's the good stuff I get, but you're not looking at all the bad stuff you avoid also, because you're going to be getting fewer of the crappy things. And synthesizing all this is a bit of a nightmare. And so with that, we are going to turn to Sir Toma's analysis. And so basically, first we're going to talk a little bit about how he did it. He did it, I think, in Python. Let me see if I haven't really thought through how we're going to talk through how he did it. But basically okay, I've got it somewhere. So TD, okay, let me see. So we're not going to read through it all. The basic summary of how he did it: he had a sample empire with a certain number of provinces in the Python code. I think it was like 15 or something provinces, and then he had a mix of different terrain types because that can also influence events. He didn't actually do this by running the game 1,000 times. He actually just set up kind of like a model in Python after he extracted all the events in a CSV. So, or in, just extracted the data from all the events. So, anyway, he has this model empire, and then from that model empire, he runs it for a lot of times in Python to see in a bunch of different test cases which events, like how many events of what type you get over the course of 100 turns, and then based on that, he can try to condense the complicated kind of crazy storm of events into total impact. And doing that is tricky because how expensive is getting attacked by indies? In my Bandar log game, getting attacked by demon knights kind of wrecked me. It really kicked a leg out from under my chair, and it's a lot more than just losing that province. Other games I've been in, I've seen storm demons on people's capitals and getting attacked by horrors. There's a bunch of bad things that can happen. How do you weigh all that up? How much is unrest compared to gold? Because sometimes you get plus gold events, sometimes you get minus gold events, sometimes you get unrest events. Unrest events can really hurt your income, but it's not straightforward how much the unrest is going to hurt, because it matters whether you can patrol it down, it matters whether you have order of turmoil. There's a lot of things that affect it. So, some of the assumptions that he made are that in general, if you get attacked by indies, you'll lose the province that the indie attack was in, and it'll take you 1 turn to get it back, so you'll get it back immediately. Now, if you're, especially in the early game, if you get attacked by a bunch of barbs or trogs or troglodytes or whatever, it can take you longer than 1 turn to get it back, and you potentially can lose army. So, but on the other hand, sometimes you'll have an army situated there already, or you'll have a lot of PD there because it's, a fort or something. Or you have patrollers because you're blood hunting or something like that, and the attack won't take your province, right? So this is, in some ways, a middle-of-the-road approach to estimating how much damage is going to come from getting attacked by indies. And, to do any sort of simplification, you have to make some assumptions like this. So anyway, that was the assumption. So the assumption is every time you get attacked by indies, you lose 6 PD, and the cost of 6 PD, and then you're going to get a bit of unrest. So if you get unrest, it's going to be based on the formula and the manual, and then you take that penalty for 10 turns, which is kind of high, but it'll, it can go on longer or shorter, but it's going to be diminishing because usually the unrest dies down according to some kind of curve. So anyway, that's probably kind of fair. But again, if you're patrolling, then you're going to be able to get rid of that unrest pretty quickly. The lost income from destroyed infrastructure, especially if you lose that in like a researching lab in one of your forts, not some random lab you have scattered in your empire, that can really, it can hurt. It's not only 500 gold lost, it's all the mage turns that were there. I'm trying to think what else. There's a bunch of other things, that were accounted for. We'll go ahead and just get into it. We'll kind of talk about it as we look at it. So these are the most important tables right here. These are kind of the summaries of his analysis. And this is looking at what is the net effect on percent of income with either Misfortune 3 or Luck 3. And with Luck 3, you can see you get about a 10% bump in income, which makes it a very solid income scale. And this takes into account all of the bad events you're not getting, plus all the good events you are getting. And then, in addition, you're going to get a fair amount of additional... you basically get another, 2% additional income if you count the free infrastructure you're going to get. But the free infrastructure is usually kind of meh. Because you'll get like a random lab here, a temple here. Some nations can make, like if you have foreign recruit mages, getting a free lab somewhere is going to be really nice. A lot of the times it doesn't do much. So that 2% I think is like highly questionable, but it's there and it's free. Next off, how many gems do you get? And basically you're going to be getting about 5 gems a turn, I think, is on average what you get with Luck 3, which is kind of a lot. You know, if you think about, especially like mid-game, you may have an income of, 15 to 20 gems. Getting another 5 is a big bump. And it can help break you into some paths that otherwise you're going to have pretty bad access to. And then in addition, you're going to be getting a fair amount of additional items. Like at least one a year. But these items, sometimes they will really change your game. Like, I've definitely played in games where I've gotten, well, not me, but other people have gotten Robes of the Magi and things like that, and it's definitely affected how the game plays. So, when you add up all the effects, the fact that you're getting basically really good income scales, that you're getting effectively good income scales. You're getting some free infrastructure, which is not super useful. You're getting additional gems, and you're getting items. Basically, it's pretty damn good in terms of Luck 3. Luck 3 is worth it. And I think this was done with growth scales and others neutral. So, if you have Turmoil, it's going to be a bit better than this. Not a ton, but a bit. So anyway. Coming up to Misfortune. Is Misfortune good? Well, Misfortune 3, you can see you're not taking a huge hit. It's about a 5% income hit for Misfortune 3, which is very cheap in terms of just pure income for getting 3 scales. But you're also going to lose labs. And so when you look at it, when you look at the total income loss with infrastructure loss and things like that, you're at like 0.5, which is, we're getting close to like 2% per scale. Plus you're going to now lose gems on average. Not a ton, but you're going to lose, half a gem a turn, which is not a lot, but it counts. It definitely counts. And you're not gaining the gems. So anyway, there's some disparity there. And then you don't get items, basically. I'm not sure why all the items were concentrated here in Luck 3. Here's looking at the same thing with... well, actually, this doesn't make sense, because this has Magic 3, but it doesn't have you getting more gems. I know for a fact you get more gems with Magic 3. I don't know. It could just be variations and when he ran it. But that's the most important thing. If you look at Turmoil at this one at 2... you get a pretty big, at Misfortune 2, you get a pretty big spike in how much income you get, or you lose, I guess, going from 2 to 3 in the events. There's some really bad Luck 3 events. So that's one of the reasons why this one is a bit better. Because there's a significant spike going from 2 to 3. So a lot of times if you need scales, you'll take Misfortune 2. And I think this kind of shows that out, which is intuition and an experience that has kind of been said in the community. So look, Misfortune 2 is not that expensive. But Luck 3 is really good. I think 2, as the game goes longer, there's a bunch of things you get with Luck 3, like you get permanent income boosts, you get you get permanent income boost, you get sites. You'll get it by turn 60, you'll normally have like maybe 3 or 4 sites that are going to give you either gems or gold. And so that's all going to be added in. And I don't remember exactly how Sir Toma accounted for all that. I think he made an attempt to count for all of that, but I'm not sure. But there's some things that really stack as the game goes on to kind of scale a bit. So the final thing I'll say about Luck is you're capped to 5 normal events per turn. So if you have a really big empire, like 100 provinces or something, you're going to be past that cap and you'll get diminishing returns on Luck. But that's an extremely good problem to have. So I don't really think that's a reason to not take it. But yeah, and I probably haven't done a great job going through all of the methodology, and he has it all here. So I'll put a link to this. Let's scan through. I don't know if he's updated all these because we made some changes at the end. But we'll go to the TLDR. The other thing is, I think the luck pool is a little better underwater. We'll take a look. So let's read the TLDR summary. Luck scales is slightly better than order of production as pure income scales when accounting for raw gold, income from discovered mines, and free infrastructure. And the income is heavily weighted to luck 2 or 3, with luck 1 providing minimal benefit, which is something I also kind of felt from having played the game a fair amount. Luck 1, not really worth it. Luck 3, I really like. Luck 2, I don't know if I've ever really picked Luck 2, but I think Luck 2 is probably still worth it. Underwater, the values of luck scale is higher due to a better event pool. Luck 2 appears to be better for income than order or production, even before considering additional infrastructure. And then additionally, luck scales generate a significant number of additional gems at Luck 2, and average an additional construction 4 to 6 items every 14 turns. And I've definitely felt that in games. It's pretty nice. By contrast, Misfortune is the cheapest income scale in the game to tank. And then we kind of talked about how he accounted for unrest. Furthermore, the lost income from destroyed infrastructure also imposes a cost. We talked about that. The main contributor to the loss of unrest are permanent income reductions. From unrest are permanent income reductions, both raw income and pop-based, along with increases to unrest. So when you look at like the minus gold penalty you're getting with Misfortune, it's not really from the minus gold events. There are a few of those. It's really from unrest. It's from having your population die or go away. And I think that's it. The addition of magic scales decreases the payoff of luck, though not significantly. This is due to profitable events being locked at lower luck levels, increasing the base. Okay. I think what he's trying to say is that, well, he's probably said it more clearly than I can. Profitable events being unlocked at lower levels, increasing the baseline income and diluting the event pool. I'm not exactly sure what he means by that, actually, but a lot of the good magic events that you can give gems, and therefore they don't give gold. So I could see how magic scales would decrease the amount of gold you get by a bit. But I've definitely found magic luck to have good synergy, though it seems there's some evidence that it might not. And so his opinion from this is that depending on your needs for expansion, it may be worth putting scale points into luck rather than order of production if you can get to +2 and have either solid heroes, good gem use. Oh, that's the other thing I didn't mention in this whole thing, is that heroes are so important. A lot of times, heroes are going to mean if you want a certain magic path access that your nation doesn't have, it may be present in a hero and you don't need to take it on your god. And that can be a really, really big deal. And then some of the heroes are just legit good, super combatant tier. So that is another reason to go luck. The way it works is if you go Misfortune 3, you basically never get a hero. And then I think with Misfortune 2, you have a 1% chance every turn to get it. And then I think with Luck 3, you have like a 5% chance every turn to get it. Something like that. It's in the manual. You can look it up. But it's going to be something like that. That's just from memory. But anyway, if you have good heroes, if you have a good use for gems, if you have foreign recruit mages, therefore could use random labs that will get sprinkled around your kingdom, or if you have low magic diversity, you can get also some important mage summons from the luck event. Then it's worth considering. God, the Hellenica game I'm in, I took Death 3 and Misfortune 3, and I have several provinces in there that are 0 income. And I didn't even blood hunt them they have 4,000 population still, 0 income. Shit. So, anyway, yeah. Getting hit with a few permanent minus income events, and then on top of having death, decreasing your population can be very, very brutal. So anyway, I think that is it. It wasn't a terribly long episode, but this is, I think, the main analysis of luck. I'll close with a couple closing thoughts. The main costs of misfortune are having to patrol, like unrest. You'll still get the population loss things, but it's having to retake provinces and getting the unrest. If you have lots of cheap patrollers, or you can get cheap patrollers, and you need the scales, therefore you don't really necessarily want luck 3, it is a good choice for a scale stop. Right? The other thing that's important is you can take provinces back quickly that get taken from you by like 40 barbs or by troglodytes. So if you have fast-moving, effective thugs, if you have flyers that can get anywhere, if you have high mobility, it can be good. But if you're a slow map-moved nation, and it's going to take you multiple turns and your armies are going to be out of position, it can be a pain in the ass. So I would say my criteria for taking Misfortune that makes Misfortune really cheap: having cheap patrollers, having high mobility or thugs to take care of raids. Having fortune tellers is nice because that can reduce bad events like population loss events, which can be really bad in your cities, like your forts with high population. Yeah, and then if you don't have terribly good national heroes, some nations don't have great national heroes that are worth it. The times you want to take luck are it's in some ways a luxury skill because it's not in and of itself going to help you expand. Production and order, they both give you either resources or recruitment points. And then growth is just a must-have for the late game, really. But luck isn't going to really help you expand, but it is a pretty solid income scale, and it's going to give you a lot of other benefits. If you don't have great patrollers, probably worth considering. I don't know. The other thing too is just from a fun factor, I almost always have more fun in games with luck. And I have usually somewhat hated myself in games I take Misfortune. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I might have won a game with Misfortune. I don't know if I've really won games with Misfortune. I probably take luck now in like two-thirds of my builds at least, like luck 3. But I think in the third of games that I've taken with Misfortune, I might have won one of them, but probably not. Anyway, but other people, you can definitely win games with Misfortune. I'm not saying you can't. And there are definitely times you want to take it, and that's just my kind of personal preference here at the end. But anyway, guys, I hope you have learned something. Perhaps this is completely new and shocking to you. Perhaps this confirmed intuition that you had already developed. Or perhaps this is going to inflame a internet chat debate. We will see. Thank you for watching, and take care.